I'd like to say a few words too, but I can't speak about Dick without speaking about Dick and Kay, because theirs really was a partnership. And in 1996, the Ethical Society of St. Louis awarded them the Ethical Humanist of the Year Award for lifetime devotion to developing creative ways to help disadvantaged young people and adults reach educational and social goals. And this is that was just a manifestation of the partnership that was theirs from when they met in a social work internship in Detroit in must have been 42 or so. And Kay said they met, and 3 weeks later, they knew that they wanted to spend the rest of their lives together. And this August would have been 65 years. And this partnership was a wonderful partnership. It was a lovely thing. Sometimes you'd say Kay and Dick walking across campus holding hands, Kay sort of half a head taller. There was a trip that they took just a few years ago. I think it was a trip coming back from California. I think, Kay, you and Dick had gone out to visit Dick's brother, and they decided to take the train back because, as you were saying, they like to travel all kinds of different routes and all kinds of different ways. And so the train trip back from California takes 2.5 days, something like that. And I think basically you're sort of in the same cars with the same people most of that time. And somewhere near the end of the trip, a man came over to Kay and Dick and said, "May I ask you how long you've been married?" And it was 60-some years at that time. And he said, "I have never seen a couple so kind and considerate toward each other." And I'll tell you a little intimate moment that I've never told anyone but my husband. One day, a few years ago, I was dropping something off at the Parvis house. And I knocked on the door, and there was no answer, no immediate answer. But the front door has these little side windows. And so I was kind of looking through the window. Maybe they weren't home to see what was going on. And from that view, you could look like straight into the kitchen. And in the kitchen, I could see Kay, whose back was to me, sitting in her seat. And then I saw Dick was on the other side of the table. And just at that moment, as I was sort of glancing in to see if anyone was home, Dick got up. He walked across to the other side of the table, bent over and gave Kay a little kiss. And they hadn't heard the knock. They didn't know I was there. And it was such a lovely moment that I just left whatever it was by the door and left. And I'll just mention something. This is a quote from Gandhi. And this was on a plaque that was given to Kay from the Women's Society and the Women's Club of Washington University to thank her for the many, many years. At that time, it was 24 years that she had been hosting these weekly gatherings of international women. The group is still going on. We're in our 41st year, and this is part of Kay's legacy. And when I say Kay, I mean Kay and Dick. And this is the quote, and Kay has said this was one of her favorite expressions. "I do not want my house to be walled in on all sides and my windows stuffed. I want the culture of all lands to be blown about my house as freely as possible." And then lastly, again, referring to the International Women, this international group that meets each week, a young woman, I think from Korea, had heard about our group, and Kay's phone number was listed there. She contacted Kay, and Kay said, "We meet on Friday morning. Do you need a ride? I'll come and pick you up." So sure enough, as the young woman told the story, there was a knock on her door at 10 o'clock in the morning. She opened the door, and there was the face of America. And that's what Kay and Dick have given us.
I don't know if there's anybody else that wants to come forward and say anything, but we do have some time for that. I would also like to mention that there is a brochure back there that's from an award that my parents both got from the Ethical Humanists Society, I believe is what it's called. And you can take a look through there if you want to. It happened a number of years ago, but it's still relevant today. I think we've got somebody else that wants to say something here.
Hello, my name is Solabisi Sola, and I'm from Nigeria. I don't think this gathering, this memorial will be complete if there's no an international person to say something about Professor Parvis. I met Professor Parvis when I was going to, as an undergraduate, because I did my undergraduate and graduate work here, and he even encouraged me to do my master's in social work. So as I finished, and in December, it wasn't time for graduation, because WASH only have a May or June graduation once a year. She said, why don't you start taking courses in the School of Social Work? So before I graduated, I started taking courses. And as somebody mentioned, you have not taken any course till Professor Parvis have taken you to Boot Hill. If you're an international student, the School of Social Work, you will visit Boot Hill several times, especially if your major is in community development. And also, I call Professor Parvis and the wife Mr. and Mrs. International, because, they care so much about international students. There you are. I'm so glad to see you. I'll give you a hug later. So they were so good to the international students, no matter where you came from. They were so good with the international wives. They introduced America of St. Louis and public school to the international wives. And Mrs. Hamilton, I can remember all the names. I'm not going to say too much. But I want to say thank you to Mrs. Parvis. Thank you to Professor Parvis for being who they are and just being themselves and being world people and international people to all kinds of people. Thank you very much. God bless you.